Hey, friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
And welcome back to Going in Raw Undertaker, the Last Ride review. This is episode 3. I forgot to write down what the actual name of this episode was, Larson.
End of an era.
Oh, that's right. End of an era, where they talk about the end of an era match quite a bit. I feel like this episode was the word that I would use to describe it was ponderous, because it sort of meandered throughout the last sort of bulk of matches, the last little catalog of matches that he had.
Well, it focused on his series of matches going back years against Triple H and Shawn Michaels, and it was effective in focusing on that because it built up kind of the crescendo. The end point of it was the disastrous match that Kane Undertaker had against Shawn Michaels and Triple H at one of the Saudi shows.
Yeah.
And this whole narrative going through the entirety of the Last Ride is Undertaker looking for the essentially perfect scenario, have the perfect match by which he could feel comfortable retiring, because that's what Shawn had. He wants that too. Is he aware that he had that opportunity?
He had that. Oh my God!
And the era match was it.
That was totally it. That was absolutely it. He pontificates quite a bit about that match, and you get the final image of all three guys standing there, the 20-0, the perfect number, to go out on, and then he doesn't. And I'm kind of disappointed that he didn't really, express why he didn't go out at that point. I mean, they didn't really, because was the next year the Brock match, or was it 2 years later?
The next year was CM Punk.
Okay, but then 30 was, that was 29, and 30 was the Brock match. It makes you wonder, okay, man, why didn't he see this as the perfect point? So yeah, it is. This is the episode really goes through, because we're going through so many things. I mean, they talk about he had the Greatest Rumble casket match versus Rusev, which at this point, if he's thinking about what his last match is going to be, and each one is he even says, like in the aftermath of this match, I can't take any match for granted. All the matches have to mean something, and they gave him a casket match from Madison Square Garden. I did not understand that at all. I'm sorry, that was the Greatest Rumble match. Yeah,
that one was a bit of an outlier, because like the Super Showdown one, the one in Australia, that was motivated in so much as that they wanted to motivate the tag match.
Sure.
At the subsequent Saudi show, which he says in this, if they had gone as planned, he might have been content to say that's that.
Yeah, I wonder if subsequently or in retrospect, I mean, look, there is this thing that hasn't been talked about, which is money. You have to think that maybe one aspect of it is after the end of an era, especially when the Saudi deal came around, they were probably throwing money hand over fist at Mark Calloway at this point to come and do these shows. And you could romanticize, because he'd romanticize the Saudi stuff a little bit in this. He says, it's great to be part of all this, and it's an honor, and blah, blah, blah. But the bottom line is he was probably bringing in a decent chunk of change for these last matches. But yeah, they try to frame it as he's looking for the perfect match to go out on. And it's either he feels great, the match is crap, the match is too short. It's this endless, like they call it, a vicious cycle over and over.
Like Catch-22, where you have a really good match.
That's what Triple H refers to it. Yes,
I can go and do it again. Part of me, it seems like Michelle, several other people are just somewhat convinced that he just has a hard time stepping away, period. So even if he is presented with the perfect opportunity, the perfect matchup, he and his opponent wrestle the perfect match to put an end to his career. Even then, he might not have the wherewithal to step away. Another part of it, I'm wondering too, is if he feels so loyal to Vince that if Vince calls him up and says, Mark, I need you.
Right.
Like, can he say no?
Right.
Can he say no to Vince? And I think that's really a thing. Like, if for a number of years, I know the Saudi show was kind of an outlier, but we've seen this with Stone Cold. You telling me Vince hasn't called Shawn Michaels or Stone Cold? Hey, you'd be interested in getting back in the ring.
Right, yeah.
I can't say with any degree of certainty that has or hasn't happened, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did. And seemingly, apart from one instance where Shawn Michaels got the bug enough to get back in the ring again, both those guys, if they were approached, said no. I don't know if Undertaker can tell Vince no.
Yeah, I mean, he's said several times, if he needs me, I'll be there for him. He is a very loyal person. Another thing this episode I felt did, and we'll circle back around to the matches in a second, was I thought that there were moments in this that, and we've seen this throughout the first two episodes, that really brought him down to earth as just one of the guys. There was the whole scene with him playing cards with James, his sort of handler guy, I guess.
Well, it was one of the dudes, the trainer. He was one of the trainers.
Okay, oh yeah, one of the trainers, yeah. And Kane and Glenn Jacobs was there, and he speaks very effusively about Glenn Jacobs.
Yeah.
And he's playing cards with the guy, and he's like super competitive, but like, it's not like Jordan levels of competition where it's just crazy. But he just seems like the most down-to-earth dude. As soon as you get the little moment that really struck me, because it's very relatable, was when after the Cena match, when the kid says, his daughter says, "I can't believe Daddy won," and he explains, every time I win, she happens to fall asleep, and so she only has seen my losses, so she was surprised. And he sort of looks, and he gives her that look that I have given Alabama many times in our lives, and so the last episode did this a lot, also basically with his relationship with Michelle, but I saw this a lot when just his sort of fly on the wall moments that were captured in this, that were presented in this, and you see Kane over there just sort of cracking up in the and then all the talk that Triple H had about his leadership role in the locker room, and Glenn Jacobs, Kane was talking about. So many guys were so protective of their spots when he came into the business. And he says Mark wasn't like that. He always wanted to elevate the younger talent. And that's why he evolved into a locker room leader. And I thought that stuff was really, really interesting.
There was that. Triple H spoke pretty effusively about Undertaker, describing him as a locker room leader, said when he and Stephanie were getting together and people, were kind of poo-pooing it, he said Undertaker is one of the first people he talked to. And Undertaker pretty much said to him, "You shouldn't care what people are saying.
Do what you want to do." Yeah, I think we had heard that story before. That Undertaker was like, "Yeah, screw all those people. Do what you're gonna do."
Yeah.
And then he tells a story of when Triple H got good with Undertaker. He comes
drinking shots of Jack. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that those little things are really good. Getting back to the matches. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to talk about they touched on Shawn Michaels, Undertaker's relationship kind of before and after Shawn Michaels had to retire. And the Undertaker made no bones about the fact that he was not a fan of Shawn Michaels on a personal level.
Right. Not many people
were. His initial run. However, he did realize the chemistry they had in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And Shawn Michaels kind of suggested that, yeah, he may not have liked me, but he respected me based on what we could do together in the ring. So it always kind of worked out. But then they said, he took his leave. He became a new man.
Yeah.
He found God, and he came back, and he was basically a different person.
I wonder, the one of the more interesting things in recent history was the 4-year series between him and HBK and Triple H, culminating at the end of an era. And when he talks about this is 4 years, that's unheard of these days. I mean, they have the guys that they could build a 4-year program with. They just don't do it. They really don't. Sometimes they stumble into long-term storylines if some people get hot and they're like, oh, hey, we can reference what they did in the past because they happen to do something. But this was a deliberate thing. Once he was going through the second match with HBK, the retirement match, he went to Triple H and said, hey, you want to do something now? We can continue the story through you. And number one interesting thing about that is the fact that Undertaker was so interested in the storytelling aspect of it. That he was one who came up with, hey, we can extend this thing 2 more years. That was interesting. his relationship with HBK, yeah, how, he basically said he was a brand new person. One of the things that's so kind of overlooked there is the fact that the two guys known for being the biggest politicers put this guy over for 4 years. That cannot be understated, that they continued this streak. And I know Triple H had been on record during the Undertaker, the initial DVD they did, where he sort of was breaking character and people were talking about him. How he said, it was before the Brock match. He says, I don't think the Undertaker streak should ever be broken. And that felt like a shoot. That felt like that was his actual sentiment.
Yeah.
And so, like, from that standpoint, two guys who respected the industry, obviously, and the legacy and the history of the Undertaker, it seems like maybe a no-brainer that they would both job to him 4 years in a row. At the same time, these guys were also big-time politicers, and Triple H still had, at the end of an era match, he still had some left in the tank. Like, he wasn't really calling it a day at that point. It could have made total sense for Triple H to have won that last match. But Undertaker kicked out of a super kick pedigree combo and ended up winning. So I don't know. I thought that, when confronted with this again, it's like, man, that's kind of crazy. The two biggest politicers in the game jobbed to this guy for 4 years in a row on the biggest stage of them all.
Yeah. And I'm happy Undertaker appreciated the significance of the storytelling, especially at the end of the era match, because it is a masterpiece in terms of culminating a 4-year story with tons of drama. And as Undertaker put it, up to that point, it seemed to be the most conceivable time when the streak could potentially end. Based on the odds that he was facing in the ring. You could tell it meant a lot to him. He says Triple H gave himself and Shawn Michaels a framed picture, I think, of a piece of Shawn Michaels' ref jersey, maybe a piece of the mat, with the autographed pictures of each of them at the top of the stage embracing. And he says it's hanging above the door to my gym, Lady Gym, maybe.
Lady Gym.
And he said it's one of, if not like the most important moment of his entire career.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish that there would be a moment where he might discuss why that wasn't the perfect time.
Yeah.
Because that's as close, at least in the matches that he has had subsequently, that's as close he has gotten to having a Shawn Michaels type moment where he can retire, and it's like a perfect wrap up. It's like the perfect opponent. Everything about it is about as perfect as it's going to get, it seems like, for the Undertaker.
Yeah.
And he didn't take advantage of it. Maybe at that time, the only I can think of, maybe at that time he wasn't really seriously entertaining the idea of retiring, but everything about the build-up to that made it seem like that was it.
That would seem to be the case, that at that point he just had not considered, because he still had the Punk match a year later. He had Brock the year after that. He had Bray after that. He still had, like, I just simply don't know if it even occurred to him at that point. I mean, you would think that all his conversations with Shawn Michaels, especially, in the lead up to 26, the retirement match, that would come to him as well. Again, that might just be one of those things where it was like, well, I'm making a bunch of money. I wrestle once a year. Why would I stop? I mean, the practicality of it is, yeah, legacies are great, but I can continue I can figure that out after I cash these checks. You know what I mean? I mean, the bottom line is people need money.
And he was obviously in some serious physical decline leading up to Mania 33, and I think in the first episode he mentioned that like he hadn't really felt good since either 25 or 26. It was one of the Shawn matches, and maybe it was a situation where for a number of years, he was dealing with the pain and the injuries, but it was manageable up to a point. Where going to that Roman match, he felt like, okay, now it's at the point where it's not manageable. Can I suck it up? Can I get through one last match with a good opponent to wrap things up? Can we deliver performance on the level that I want to, for people to remember me by, so I can walk away from this and heal my body? And I wonder if it was a situation where the match wasn't kind of as good as he wanted it to be, if he could have been at peace with that being his final match.
Oh, the Roman one?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it seemed like that from the first episode or from the second episode when he was talking about it. It totally seemed like that. I mean, who knows if it was like the greatest match ever? I mean, dude, all the rigmarole with him, the hat and the coat, like you and I both thought that was it. That was done. And in fact, all that stuff really superseded how not great the match was. It's like they did the match. He did what he could do. I remember if I recall correctly, my opinion on that match was like, man, yeah, it wasn't great, but God, he gutted it out. Like it was obvious that he wasn't, working on all cylinders.
Yeah, yeah.
But like the fact that he did what he did, I thought that was very impressive. And the endless analogies for Western movies or Old West characters that he likes to employ and everybody else around him likes to employ, including JR with the mustard stain in his goatee. I was watching on the 70-inch and he's got the big old chunky, like I got his it right here. He had like a big old chunky yellow in his goatee. I was cracking up. Had myself a hot dog earlier. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it seems to be the case, but at the same time, he loves using that analogy of like the old gunslinger and, the idea of retiring on top when you still have something left in the tank. That just doesn't seem to appeal to him, Well,
it does, because that's what he wants. He wants that. He wants to go out on top. He wants to go out on one last match.
He has talked about he wants to have one last great match, but he's talked about going out on his shield so many times.
I know. It's like he's got this romantic vision of how he wants to retire versus I wonder if he kind of either it's a worry or it's a rational realization how it's more likely to happen. I think he wants to go out on top. He wants to go out having a 5-star match against the perfect opponent in the perfect venue in front of the perfect crowd to wrap up his career perfectly. More than likely, though, it's not going to be that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. He has a very romantic version of what he wants to happen seemingly up here, but at the same time, he seems to realize the reality of the situation, that he's getting up there in years. His body's not what it used to be. The opportunities he's going to get at this stage in his career to get those perfect matchups, to get those perfect venues, to get the perfect match are dwindling by the day.
Yeah. I thought that it was interesting. And again, he's got such a mystique about him that obviously this is designed to transition them, out of the mystique and into the man. When he talked about the legendary Madison Square Garden with such a reverence, I thought I'm just the fact that there seems to be nothing is jaded about him, at least in this documentary as he's presented. He is not in the least way jaded. This is a guy, and it's funny because McMahon talks about, looking in the mirror and wanting to. It's obvious that, and even Vince McMahon loves pro wrestling, and The Undertaker loves pro wrestling, everything about it so much, and that seems to also be one thing that's simply keeping him from real. Like this might be the deepest thing, is that he loves doing it so damn much. That like calling it and having such a problem with the idea of not being able to do this thing that you love so much, I think is probably the deepest thing that he can't come to terms with, and he's not letting himself come to terms with it. It's I have this perfect match, so I want to do another one. Oh, this is going to be my last one. It sucks. I got to do another one to redeem it. At the end of the day, it just seems like he loves to do pro wrestling. When he had that little moment of pause talking about Madison Square Garden, I was like, man, that means so much to him. And it's almost as if he's like, because he talks about, this might be the last time I'm at Madison Square Garden. And then the camera sits on him and he just sort of grunts. He goes, like it just eats at him. And he hates the idea that this is the last time he's going to do anything, It's to me, it's so interesting to see somebody. It's nice to see somebody love something so much. You often think about retirement when it comes to a 9-to-5, working person's job. It's like, oh man, I can't wait to retire and then enjoy my retirement. These people don't want to retire because they love doing this shit so much. And that to me is such an interesting thing that is so, it seems to be unique to pro wrestling. People love that pop. They love the cheers. They love the crowd. And when he talked about being in the ring and giving the fans eye contact, that was deep. That's pretty deep right there, you know?
Something he said he doesn't ever do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But after that last, what he thought was his last MSG show, he said he was in the ring and soaked it in, and yeah.
And the eye contact, like, can you imagine being there and Mark Calloway giving you eye contact? That'd give me chills,
else, man. Yeah,
I would not forget that moment for the rest of my life. So yeah, I don't know. I thought this was. There's just one small thing too that I thought. Oh, two small things that I thought was hilarious. Number one, he talked about certain wrestlers being bad luck when they walk into a room and he has to tell them to leave. And he said Hornswoggle, Big Show, and I didn't catch the last name.
Tony Chimmel.
Okay, that's who I thought he said, but I didn't catch. That was funny. And then I thought it was hilarious that he blamed that Saudi tag match against DX on family drama that him and Michelle were having with other members of his family. And I am just thoroughly curious as to what that would be, because it could be the stupidest thing, or it could be something really deep. You know, it could be an argument over a will, or it could be some a party foul at Thanksgiving, you know, that ruined. But God, come on, that match went way beyond, you know, his head not being in the game.
Triple H tore his pec pretty early on that match, my understanding. I still haven't seen it.
I've seen enough. So yeah, I thought that was silly stuff. But all in all, I thought it was a ponderous episode. I thought they spent a little too much time talking about end of an era, because a lot of the stuff I just knew already. But yeah, no, I thought it was pretty interesting that just they took his last big batch of matches and just sort of, you know, they were a bit ponderous about why were these none of his last matches. You know?
I know. And then the next episode, he gets to talk about wrestling Goldberg.
Oh my God. Yeesh.
Give me an hour on that.
I don't want. Oh God, give me an hour on his real thoughts, and then I'll be happy. But there is no way he's going to be anything but diplomatic about this.
Yeah, this whole time he's been really diplomatic.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to interview Goldberg about this.
I don't know. Knowing Bill, I could.
He's always been pretty open.
He has been. But he's always been pretty open in terms of seeing things through his particular viewpoint. So if it's a situation where they interview Bill and he goes on about how, well, I need to go out there and make things believable. So when I get posted on the ring post, I need to really get posted. And for him, that means actually ringing his bell on the ring post head first.
Yeah.
Because that's how he's described it before. It's like, I got to make sure when I'm in there, everything seems believable. So if I get tossed to the ring post, I got to hit it head first.
Yeah.
Which is, it's not what pro wrestling's about. You're not supposed to injure yourself.
Wouldn't really think so.
Because then if you injure yourself, the chance you can injure other people.
Yeah, exactly. Like you almost did here. Anyways, that's it for our Undertaker Last Ride episode 3, the end of an era episode. Let us know what you guys thought in the comments below. Thanks for watching. And until next time, we'll talk to you later.
Goodbye.